Hi there, and welcome back to the studio. Today I'll be presenting the definitive guide to purchasing a second-hand Eventide H8000FW. Let's get into it. For those of you who don't know, I've been making music with these machines since 2014. I've also serviced every revision since its inception in 2005. As a matter of fact, it was the acquiring, servicing, and flipping of these things that helped build a good portion of this studio. The experience I've gained over the years now enables me to help you, the viewer, acquire the revision that'll best suit your personal needs. For those of you who don't have the time or even the interest to watch the rest of this video all the way through, just take a look in the description where I've put the vital information that you need to know. For those who want to carry on, let's continue. The questions to ask yourself that are of primary importance are as follows. Number 1, will you be transporting it? And number 2, how important is Ethernet compatibility? First off, let me say that the machine is very, very well built. The points that I'll be bringing up today are few but significant, starting with the U106 chip. The U106 chip is a proprietary Eventide chip that's stored somewhere towards the center of the board. It had been there since the days of the Orville, which is the platform that the Eventide H8000 series is built on. Initially, when the motherboard was designed, there was a socket that would accept the U106 chip, which was just simply pressed into it. Over time, the chip would tend to rattle loose if it was being transported or subject to nearby vibrations. Once that happened, it would send off all sorts of funny codes, lock up, and generally misbehave when you were counting on it the most. The first solution to this problem was to add silicone paste or silicone glue around the corners of the chip. Still, though, somehow this thing wound up working its way loose. When machines were still coming in for service with the same symptoms, Eventide realized that it was a recurring problem and decided when the new motherboards were made, they would just solder the U106 chip directly into the circuit, basically surface mounting it instead of socket mounting it. This ultimately solved the problem of the U106 chip. If you happen to have a U106 chip that was socketed, Eventide would accept the H8000 back for a fee of $325 plus shipping and tax. Now that you could purchase an H8000FW on the second-hand market, why not just get one that already has the U106 chip soldered to the board? Every H8000FW bearing the serial number FW1041 onwards, all the way to the end of production, has a soldered-in, surface-mounted U106 chip. In addition to having the benefit of the U106 chip soldered to the circuit board, every H8000FW from serial number FW01041 onward also has an improved display. The old made-in-Japan Optrex DMF5010s that Eventide had used since the beginning had finally reached end of life, forcing them to source displays elsewhere. The new displays were brighter and clearer and more resilient to heat, but they required a special adapter that Eventide had manufactured to ensure compatibility with the traces that were etched in the motherboard to accept the 5010. As soon as you pop the lid on one of these units, as opposed to the older ones, you'll see that there is a two-part screen. The display itself is slightly thinner, and then there's a green circuit board behind it that it connects to, and that in turn connects to the motherboard. The older units will just have the straight DMF5010 with a ribbon cable going directly into the motherboard. The problem with the old Optrex 5010s is that their contrast wasn't that stark. Also, after the machine would be on for some time and it would begin to heat up, you would see the blue start turning into a lavender, the lavender would go to a pink, and ultimately the screen would start getting washed out, and you had to start playing with the contrast and the brightness to get it back to a nice, clear, visible condition. Ultimately, though, these screens would fail because they were never suited to be exposed to those temperatures that a 2U Eventide could produce inside of a rack, particularly when you've got people that never give these things proper ventilation. So, when looking for an H8000FW secondhand, go for serial number FW01041 and beyond. Although that seems simple enough, there is one more thing that's worth mentioning. If Ethernet compatibility is essential for you, then stay right there. Anyone who's ever examined a unit that was manufactured beyond November 12, 2015 which would bear serial number FW01161 or beyond. We'll notice when scanning the back, when they get to the place where the empty Ethernet jack would be, the RJ45, you'll see that there is a black dummy plug there that looks almost like a dust plug to cover it up. I had gotten one of these units at a certain point and was prepared to put it into my rack and use the Ethernet to control it. After getting everything set up and popping the black plug out, I noticed there was an empty cavern, no jack. As it turns out, from FW01161 onwards, the decision was made to completely remove the jack to accept an Ethernet. So if you're looking to add another machine into your rig and you think that you're just going to plug an Ethernet cable into it, make sure you get FW01160 or earlier, all the way back to FW01040, where you would have both the soldered U106 chip and the brilliant new display. I ultimately found out that the decision was made to stop support for Ethernet since it had been out of production for so long. I never understood this because having an Ethernet is like having a little guy on your shoulder to tell you to buy more H8000s. Why not just keep the jack on there? Yes, the Ethernet was discontinued, but people paid good money for it when it was out. $2,000 something. I remember when I first saw it, I said, why would I pay that much for a remote control? It's half the cost of the machine. But once prices came down and everything went second hand and I was repairing the things and being able to get my hands on stuff, of course I got an Ethernet remote. And I got the H8000s off to the side. Ethernet stays by the desk. It's brilliant. So for me, having the Ethernet compatibility is essential. If Ethernet is not a factor whatsoever, then anything past FW01041 is the machine for you. If for some reason the H8000FW ever fails to hold its memory when the power is turned off, you may have an internal battery failure. It's best not to wait for that moment, especially if you know that the battery hasn't been changed since the time of manufacture. The battery required is a simple Panasonic 3-volt BR2330 that could be purchased online. It's relatively simple to do so, and the link for instructions on how to do it will be placed in the description below. In order to prevent losing valuable data, you can either back it up in advance, or, and this is not recommended for obvious reasons, you can replace the battery while the unit is plugged in, but you have to be careful not to drop this thing on the circuit board and short something out, because then you're going to have a much worse problem than a battery that's failing to perform. Legally, I can't recommend that you open the unit and do anything to it, so I'll just recommend that you refer the service to a qualified professional. Also worth noting is that since I use these machines a lot, I tend to find more bugs than the average user. So I found a couple of quirks, some problems with how the programs are organized, and some problems with some of the audio in the programs themselves. So I worked closely with Jerome and with Nick over at Eventide, and we got it all taken care of, and they gave me a version. Instead of 5.61, it's 5.610. I don't know if it was ever officially released, but if you wind up getting an H8000FW and would like that updated version of the software, just contact me and I could send it to you in a file. It's also worth noting that if you're concerned about the new display failing at some point, as all things do, that I have worked with a company called Lux Displays, L-U-X Displays. They're in Great Britain. I've measured out the display in the Ethernet, I've measured out the display in the H8000. It's exactly the same, just different standoffs, different configuration, how it's put in. But this company, Lux Displays, has made a drop-in replacement for both the Ethernet and for the H8000 series. It also works on the Orville. So they've got you covered. Just look them up in case you ever have a failing display, and it'll be too expensive to send it into Eventide. Their displays are reasonably priced, they're very well made, and I've had one going in my live rack for the last 4 years without any issue whatsoever. Okay, I hope this video finds you well. If it was helpful and you'd like to let me know, just leave a comment below. I want to get some more Eventide videos made, maybe some comparison videos. I don't know. The landscape is open. I got a 9000 here, 3 H8000s, an Eclipse, and an H3500 with the 95-second sampling board. So maybe some sort of comparison video next. I don't know. Or if you want to get some more H8000 videos made, let me know. If I know you want them, we'll get them done. Come on. Okay, well, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.